Want to welcome everybody to our February Clay County Board of Education meeting. We'll go ahead and get everything started since it is officially 6 o'clock. And if Mr. Caldwell doesn't mind, I'm going to ask him to do the Pledge of Allegiance for us.
Attention. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Coffey, would you mind to read the mission statement?
Sure. The mission of Clay County Schools is to build high-quality learning environments that ensure all students learn at high levels.
Thank you. Announcements for this month is the Western Region Teacher of the Year will be visiting Clay County Schools on March the 15th. Our next Open Way Learning Clay County Schools Portrait of a Graduate Design meeting is March the 22nd, and that's in the Middle School Media Center from 4 to 6 p.m. And it's the repeat of what was done on February the 20th. So if you came February 20th, you don't have to worry about coming again unless you just want to on March 22nd. And then our next regular board meeting will be held on March the 27th at 6 o'clock. And I will entertain the motion that we approve the agenda that was emailed to you and that you have in front of you.
I'll make a motion, we approve it.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Thank you. And next we have public comment. And again, we'll just remind everybody that that is 3-minute time limit. And we have Mr. Paul Rose signed up.
Paul Rose, Thumping Creek Road. This evening I'm submitting 2 questions in accordance with the school board handbook for a public clarification and response from the board. Don't worry, neither are controversial. First, several years ago during an election season, I was honored with compiling and asking questions to all candidates during a candidates forum. Those included candidates running for the school board. Several members of the board tonight likely recall that forum. One question asked for their thoughts on the approved and ongoing biblical literature class in Cherokee County Schools. All considered it a good idea based on being in compliance with state requirements. For the last 5 years, Cherokee County School has included this credit-earning elective class titled Biblical Literature. It has been taught by volunteers and has been extremely well received. I've heard a number of folks, students, parents, and residents in Clay County ask why we can't have the same class here in Clay County. My first question to the board this evening is to clearly define and publicly state what specific steps are required to initiate, coordinate, gain approval, and kick off that same class as part of the regular elective curriculum here in Clay County Schools. Secondly, our schools have been and are very successful in the number and diversity of activities available to students. And we all know that there will never be enough to cover each and every interest of every single student. However, there is always something new to be considered as long as someone is willing to put forth the effort and drive the train, so to speak. My second question for the board this evening is to ask for the same clarification of requirements, criteria, and process steps and to follow in order to initiate, coordinate, gain approval, and kick off a student club. Referred to officially as a non-curricular club, these could be 4-H or agricultural related, Bible study, hot rod cars, banana pudding of the month club, just a thought, or anything else that does not infer a direct association, sponsorship, or support of the school system and purely on a non-interference, no-cost basis. I understand there is currently at least a fly fishing tying club in place, and the Fellowship of Christian Athletes Clubs will soon be up and active again. I believe, just like in the past, publicly stating the requirements for homeschoolers to participate in school athletics, presenting these options and procedures clearly to the public in this format may incite additional ideas for student activities and maybe get a few more kids off their phones. Thank you, and I hereby submit these questions to Superintendent Cole as Secretary of the Board in accordance with your school board handbook for the board's public discussion and response during a regularly scheduled public meeting for the best level of exposure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll do our recognition section, and we have our 2023 Clay County Schools North Carolina Center for the Advancement of Teaching, CTE Teacher of the Year, Mr. Vonda Palmer.
Good evening, everyone. In 22, the North Carolina Center for Advancement of Teaching started a process to nominate NCAT CTE Teachers of the Year. The goal for the NCAT CTE Teacher of the Year award is to honor our CTE teachers, retain excellent teachers in both the profession and the North Carolina public schools, to encourage all districts to celebrate CTE teachers as a method of retainment, and to build relationships with all districts and schools in North Carolina. And with that being said, I'm proud to announce the NCAT CTE Teacher of the Year award for Clay County is Miss Bobby Jones.
No, Miss Jones, you have to be on camera to get your flowers.
Will somebody take our picture real quick so I can
Yes.
Where do you want us to stand? Right here?
You want to be in front? We can right here.
Oh, okay.
That's fine.
For us, it's this picture too.
For education.
Congratulations, Bobby. And our next recognition is Fellowship of Christian Athletes Club Reboot. Mr. Overland's going to be.
Just real quickly while Mr. Overland is coming up, I'd like to share as well that that award that Miss Jones got, that is voted on by her peer teachers as well. That isn't something that just Mr. Overland or I decided she was deserving of. Her colleague, career technical and education teachers voted that she deserved it.
She does.
Yeah, well done. Good evening, Clay County. I'm here to talk just for a moment tonight about getting some of our clubs back online. Mr. Rose mentioned the Fly Tie-In Club. That just started, I think, February 9th, which is a middle school and high school combined club with a staff sponsor, Greg Charles, from here in the central office. We also just started a couple of Wednesdays ago, our drama club. That was one that we had done a few years ago, and then during the last couple of years, it sort of fell by the wayside, but we're getting that kind of brought back online. Our staff sponsor there is Mrs. Jill White, and she gets a lot of technical expertise from Carrie Hood as well. They've had 2 meetings now, 13 students in both of those meetings, so that's a really good little club. The next one, the most recent one, is one we've been interested in bringing back, and that's the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Again, during the pandemic, it became really, really hard to have meetings, and then we had our advisor is no longer with us, so I'm really pleased to announce tonight that we have identified our next advisor, and I think he's going to be a perfect fit for what we're looking for here, and that is Coach Zachary Moss. Mr. Moss is our star biology teacher, also coaches cross country at the high school, and Miss Rich can tell you what all the coaches at the middle school, but he's super involved with our students. They respect him, they value what he has to say, and he has really good connections with our young people. So I think that's going to be a great fit for the FCA. He's going to take a couple days and kind of get his thoughts organized, and then I expect next week we will begin making announcements about interest meetings. He's already talking about holding elections for student officers and really making this a student-run club. That's going to be important. So that's all I have. Ms. Rich, did you want to address anything with the middle school? Or?
Well, I just want to say that I appreciate Ken taking the job of FCA leader, but this is the first I've heard of it. So whoever reached out to Mr. Dockery to ask him to do that, I'm much appreciative. So I guess that's something that Kenneth and I will be talking about in the future. Like I said, brand new, but I'm excited to have it.
Well, I'll clear up that mystery. I was the one that did that. It was brought to my attention that
Well, first of all, FCA here in Clay County has always been a middle and high school club, and we thought it was, just for communication purposes, it's important to have a staff member at each school that is sort of the communication hub for meetings and that sort of thing. And I was informed that Coach Kenneth Dockery was interested in being the middle school sponsor. So, seeing as how that is right next door to my office, I just kind of slipped over there this afternoon and made sure that that was the case. That was the rumor, and Coach Dockery told me that he was absolutely interested in that. So I plugged that into the agenda pretty late this evening, Miss Rich. So that's not your fault. That's my fault.
He'll be a great one though.
Yeah.
He's got the same great rapport with kids. Definitely exhibits his beliefs, and I think he'll do great.
That's good. It's good that those are getting going. And the other clubs as well, like the 4-H club back to fly time. Now that everybody's kind of back and in person, it'll be good to get clubs up and running again. So thank y'all for doing that. Next, we have our report section, and we'll begin with the school uplift program. That's coordinated with TVA. Ms. Larissa O'Dell is going to be giving us that.
Good evening, everyone. How are y'all?
Good. How are you?
I'm just going to do a brief presentation on School Uplift. It's a program that we've sponsored, partnered with the TVA back in June of last year. Some of their engineers came out and assessed our whole campus, and we have 27 meters on campus here. So they set up a dashboard, and I went back 2 years and plugged in all the data from every meter that we had. That was part of the requirements to do it. In the program, each school will be awarded $10,000 for their scopes that were voted on by their students. Some of the ideas was the elementary school wanted to do outdoor seating. The high school had a couple ideas of they wanted to do furniture in the media center or to update their commons area seating. Some of the other schools had talked about planting trees, additional playground equipment, stuff like that. So part of the things that we have to do is update the data board monthly. Each school has displayed posters and window clings throughout their buildings, and I think we have some pictures of that stuff. They had to implement we worked with our maintenance department and implemented a routine shutdown and HVAC filter change procedure. Their daily classroom shutdowns is shut the blinds, powering down devices, turning off lights, shutting doors. And we've also we purchased 5 machines, they're called vending misers, and they go on the Coke machines. And when the Coke machines are not in use, it powers down the compressors in them. So it's supposed to save between $800 to $1,000 a year. Time will tell. Each of these teams in the schools have consisted of students, teachers, and administration. They meet monthly and discuss ideas and look at their dashboard to see if they've increased or decreased in their kilowatt consumption. Their goal is to decrease each month, and I pulled up today and compared December and January of this year and last year just out of curiosity. And our kilowatt usage did increase a little bit, but that was because we had that cold snap during Christmas. Each facility did increase, except for the high school gym. They decreased over 4,000 kilowatts, so that was pretty interesting considering basketball was going on. And another thing we figured out doing all this was a lot of the meters are not, for example, the middle school and the rock gym are all on a meter together, but the rock gym is technically part of the elementary school because the middle school has their own gym. So the meters were placed, I guess, strategically location-wise on the campus instead of per schools per se. So that was something pretty interesting. The students and teachers have really pushed the point to be mindful and turn off lights and unplug your devices daily, not just at holidays and breaks and stuff. And our high school made a video to promote their school. So if Adrian wants to play that, it was pretty cool.
Hey guys, for this video, we're going to be showing you how we can conserve energy around the school on a daily basis. Alright class, put your pencils down, it's time to line up for lunch. Miss Autumn, we need to conserve energy.
Guys, this video we're going to show how to conserve energy over long breaks like Christmas break. Alright guys, today's the last day before Christmas break, so let's be sure at 3 o'clock we unplug everything in my room, okay? There.
So this program will run through May, and I'll continue tracking the data up until May, and then they will announce the winners of each schools and get $10,000, and the schools that are chosen will get to follow through with their scope. And so we'll be interested to see how that shakes out. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, just on top of that, so each school will get a $10,000 amount of cash to pay for an approved plan that they've already submitted. That cash comes from TVA, not from us. Just want to point that out by taking part in the program. I also think it's been really powerful to educate the students and involve them in the process so that they can actually see the difference it makes when you unplug things. So I don't know about you guys, but like I struggle with my kids all the time about just cutting things off, unplugging things, shutting the door, the whole thing. And so I think it's important that they can see in buildings the size of ours the difference that it can make, particularly over a long break when you can show them the actual data compared from this year to last year, same month during that Christmas break, and they can see the impact that it has. Hopefully, by making them a part of the process, they'll take that education with them into adulthood of how to conserve energy and money.
Next, we have discussing the review of policy 3225, 4205, which is internet safety.
You need me to flip the screen while
No, I got it. I think. Yes. All right, I'm going to talk just real quick about our internet safety policy as it pertains to SIPA compliance. Our board policy 3226, 4205 is the internet safety. It just pretty much states that we're going to prevent users from accessing inappropriate material on the internet, prevent unauthorized access to the internet, prevent unlawful online activity, prevent unauthorized student information disclosures, and comply with SIPA, which is the Children's Internet Protection Act. The main reason we do this is because our internet is funded through E-rate, and that means it must be SIPA compliant, and we don't get the discounts if we're not. That means we got to have an internet safety policy that also includes a technology protection measure, which AKA filter. That filter has to block internet access to pictures that are obscene, child pornography, or harmful to minors. And that we use this one that's provided by the state. It's Zscaler is the name of the filter. That's the one that's provided to us free to use from the state. The next part of that is the internet safety policy, and it has to address access by minors to inappropriate material, and pretty much safety and security of minors with any direct electronic communications, no hacking. Again, it talks about the personal information of students and measures in place to restrict access to materials that's harmful to them. This is all included in our policy in Section C. Covers all of that. Schools are subject to two more additional certification requirements. One being that we must monitor the online activities of minors, which we do that with Gaggle. It scans all of the email, all of the Google Drive, all of the access that they have with that. That's what we use Gaggle for, and then we get alerted from them. And then it also requires educating minors on pretty much digital citizenship. In K-5, That's done at in their library time. And 6 through 12, that's done in the classroom. And we're working on revamping that training procedure for next school year. CommonSenseMedia.org is where those come from, and they're age-based lessons that are specific to different age group of children. And last, we've got the technology responsible use, which sets the standards for acceptable use of the internet services. And that's the one we send home with every kid at the beginning of the school year and have the parents and the students sign it annually so they know what to expect. And any questions? Yes. Okay.
What did you call it? Z-scaler?
Z-scaler. Yes.
And does it cause any lab problems with?
Not really. I mean, that's a pretty robust. There's about 17 different data centers that those run through. So it's very robust. I mean, sometimes it's like anything else, it goes down occasionally. But that we've used that since we started sending devices home, because that was the only way we could filter the device when it wasn't on campus, was with that.
And Gaggle was the other software that you were looking for. And what that does is scan all of any document that is created on our network, and it scans for keywords. If any of those words pop up, we get an immediate notification. So like, a kid can create a Google Doc, Google Drive, and if they start typing about something that is recognized through keywords as being of concern, then we get a notification.
Yeah, that goes to, and one thing nice with Gaggle is it does go to another human first, and they look at it, which cuts down on false positives. Cuts down, doesn't eliminate it, but it does cut down.
Any other questions for I'd also share CommonSenseMedia.org is an excellent webpage that anyone can access. So anyone looking at home, if you're looking for a website to learn more about digital citizenship, and maybe sit down and have conversations with your children about that are age appropriate, CommonSenseMedia.org is a great place to go. Next, we have discussion of the school safety plan. I think I have a number of things to go over. So just very quickly, discussion of school safety plans and school improvement team reviews and Board of Education approval. I'm just sharing with the board tonight that all of the school improvement teams have taken a look and an in-depth review of their school safety plans as a part of closed session in their school improvement team meetings. The primary school reviewed and approved their plan on February 2nd with one change. They added Shane Mole as the assigned school resource officer for the primary school because it was the first time they had one. So we're very, again, happy about that and glad that the county commissioners helped us provide that, as well as the sheriff's department. Hayesville Elementary School School Improvement Team reviewed and approved their plan with no changes on February 22nd. The Middle School School Improvement Team reviewed and approved their safety plan on February 9th with no updates. And the High School School Improvement Team reviewed and approved their safety plan on February 8th with no changes. I will say, all of those safety plans have been shared with the board through the Google Drive. There's a folder there called SRMP plans that I'd ask you to just look over them this month. And at next month's meeting, we'll have a board approval of those plans. I will say that the leadership team, we're going to be moving towards having more of a district safety plan in the future, particularly with a reworked student evacuation plan that we're going to put in place this summer. Last week, I met with members of the Sheriff's Department as well as the pastor at one of our local churches that is large enough to house all of our students. as far as safety plans, we've been working over the last 3 years to look at safety events as a district event as opposed to each individual school. Because the reality, for instance, is that if the elementary school catches on fire, we're not going to continue to have classes in the high school while the fire department is trying to put the fire out at the elementary school. The entire district is going to have to shut down. So there's no reason to have, for example, separate fire drills at each school at different days and times. The reality is that if we have a fire on our campus, all of our schools are going to have a fire evacuation, and all at the same time. So we changed our fire drills to that a couple of years ago, our tornado drills. We do everything as a district. In the event of an actual live shooter situation on our campus, God forbid that ever happens, but if it does, we're going to have to evacuate all of our students from our campus and take them to another location for their safety and also to free up the campus so that the sheriff's department can investigate and do everything that they need to do without us being in the way. And we need to have a place where we can check students out to their parents in an orderly fashion so we know that everyone gets to their parent. Currently, our school safety plans have a different location for each school for an evacuation point, which if you think about it would be very difficult to manage in a panic situation. Because in order to bus everyone, we've got 22 buses. We've got to load them all. It'd be very difficult to divide kids up in a situation like that to put them on a specific bus going to a specific place. Even if we did mixed on all of the buses, it would still be difficult if the buses had to go to multiple locations and drop kids off by age level, because over 50% of our parents have students at multiple schools. So now parents in a panic situation are having to pick kids up at multiple locations. It would just be much more orderly and simpler to have one location that we take all of our students to. And so we think we've got the bones of a plan for that. We just need to sit down with the sheriff's department, maybe DOT, maybe the fire department to kind of work on some traffic procedures and get that approved so that we can communicate that plan to the public should it ever be needed. We also think that it'll minimize maybe panic a lot more if everyone kind of knows how the evacuation process works and why we have it up front. So we'll be working on that this summer, but for now, we've got the plans in place that we have. And they will work. I just think we can come up with something better. It's just going to take us a little bit of time. So tonight is just about letting you know kind of where we are on that process, asking you to review the plans that have been shared with you, and then we'll vote on approval or answer any questions over the month from the board.
Any questions or comments?
Oh, that's appreciated. Sure.
Thank y'all for doing that. Next, we have the 2023-2024 Clay County Schools calendar options as a first read tonight as well.
Also, I have shared with the board digitally and in your packet tonight, you have the two options, calendar options for next school year. Just real quick, Miss Becky Stewart leads this process, but she couldn't be here tonight, so I'm going to go through and cover this, and we have some slides to cover this process and how it works. So this is your calendar committee. We have representatives from each school and from each grade level. We also had a student representative and central office representatives as well. We also had a parent representative from each school. So this is the group that met. This is the law. Each local board of education shall adopt a school calendar consisting of 215 days, all of which shall fall within the fiscal year. A school calendar shall include the following: a minimum of 185 days or 1,025 instructional hours. So we're always counting our days and our hours whenever we have those weather days. But thankfully, we've had a pretty mild winter, so that's been helpful. The current calendar law that the General Assembly has in place requires that the first day The Monday closest to August 26th will be the first day of school unless a waiver is granted, which we have not had a waiver granted to us. There must be 10 or 11 holidays. There must be 10 annual leave days. There must be 195 teacher working days for which they are paid their salary. Teacher work days, extra instructional or other lawful use. No school on Sundays. And the last day has to be the Friday closest to June 11th. So that puts a pretty tight, there actually aren't that many choices when it comes to the school calendar each year. Non-negotiables, Clay County Schools will not receive a weather waiver for this school year. Therefore, we have to start school on the Monday closest to August 26th through August 28th. Remote learning days were only required for the 2020-2021 school year. They are optional at any time subject to school board approval. Hayesville High School testing before the holidays or after students return, that's always a big question. Due to the calendar law passed by the General Assembly some years back that we've been battling to have changed ever since I've been an administrator, there is no way, the only way you can have exams, state exams at the high school prior to getting out for Christmas break is if your fall semester is about 3 weeks shorter in instructional days than your spring semester. That's the only way to do it because we're limited to when we can start and when we can finish and how many days we must have. So we tried having exams, I think it was last year before Christmas break, and after it was all said and done, our teachers just did not feel like that was fair to our fall semester students. So this year we elected to have exams after Christmas break, which also really isn't fair to our students because they leave for 2 weeks. There's a little bit of forgetfulness that happens. We come back, we have a review for 2 or 3 weeks, and then we have state exams. So we are again advocating through Senator Kevin Corbin and Representative Carl Gillespie to have the school calendar law changed so that we can have, so that the Board of Education can have local control over our own calendar. We want to be able to start early enough so that we can have state exams before Christmas break and have the same number of instructional days for both semesters. And we would also very much like to align our school calendar with the community college calendar. Because right now, a lot of our 11th and 12th grade students take community college classes. And the community college starts 2 or 3 weeks before we do. That's not because it's what we want, it's because of what the law requires. And again, this law is in place mainly because of the tourism industry at the beach. It doesn't have anything to do with anything around here. So we're just asking that the Board of Education be given the authority or local control to put its own calendar in place. And we'll discuss a resolution that we're approving a little bit later. So these are the two options. Next slide, please. So there were 2 meetings that were approximately 2 hours long, and then of course we had email and paper copies made of everything. I really want to thank the committee members for committing 4 hours of their lives to kind of help us do this. We like to have community input on the calendar because obviously the school calendar impacts everybody. It impacts your vacations. It impacts a lot of things. I think the one thing we've learned from this that we're going to do differently next year is when we get the calendar committee together next year, we're going to do a district calendar for 2 years so that we can go ahead and do it biannually instead of annually. So that'll be the goal next year. So I've just added some summary slides. We have 2 options that the calendar committee approved. Option 1. First semester is 88 days long. It ends on January 19th, so state exams at the high school would be after Christmas break. And then second semester would end on May 24th, and it has 82 days, 82 instructional days. So total instructional days are 170, total instructional hours are 1,105. So that gives us some leeway for weather days and that sort of thing if we have to close early some days or close all day some days. There are 11 holidays. There are 24 teacher work days, 12 mandatory, 12 optional. There are 10 annual leave days as required by law for a total number of days of 215, again, as required by law, or 1,025 hours. So that's option one. That just kind of goes through and is a version of what you have in your hands. And I will share this with the public through Facebook tomorrow, just so everybody can have an opportunity to take a look and provide the board with any feedback that they want to provide. Next slide, please. Option number 2, semester 1 ends on January 19th again, 88 days. Semester 2 would end on June 4th, so that we would have 88 days in the spring semester. So they would be equal. 176 total instructional days, 1,144 hours, 11 days of holidays, 18 days of teacher work days, so 10 mandatory, 8 optional, 10 annual leave days for a total of 215 days. I will say that it was the consensus of the calendar committee that they liked option 1 the best, but of course ultimately it is up to the board which option you would like to approve, or if you would like to suggest any changes before approving one of these calendars. I think I've already gone through that. Skip next slide. So that's that. Any questions? And again, no approval. It's not on the action agenda for tonight. You've got some time to look at it.
Any questions or comments? I guess we can email you with those as well over the next month.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So next we have the action section of the intermediate school update. You got that?
Yes. So, I'm sorry that this doesn't look bigger on the screen. I would make it a lot easier or bigger on your paper, but I have to work with the documents that the architect company sends me. And so it's kind of hard to see. The board asked just for an update with the new school plans. I'll tell you that I have a regular Tuesday at 1:30 meeting with the architect every week by Zoom. And then, of course, we email throughout the week, probably on average 3 or 4 times a week. This is the overhead sort of design view, as well as the first floor plan. I remember all 3, there are 2 levels to this school and 3 wings. So you can see the main hub is at the bottom, and then sort of the T at the top on the left, that is the 3-5 wing. Next to the rock gym, that dark gray area next to that wing, that's the rock gym. We put that there so that we could hopefully do an enclosed breezeway between the rock gym and the 3-5 wing. And they would have a much shorter distance to travel to go to a PE. On the right is the grade 6 through 8 wing. There's a little commons area there in between the 2. I wanted to point out, first of all, that if you look closely, if you can see it, we've kind of started naming rooms based on their purpose. However, understand that a room is a room. We're going to use it however we see fit once the school is opened. So the naming of the rooms is just to make sure that we have a space for all of our needs. Once we have the school, if we need to switch things around, that's just a matter of switching a name tag on a door. So don't get freaked out about where a specific room is designated to be. We can always move those. At the bottom of the main hub, I think the biggest question probably for the board right now would be the auditorium. So I want to focus on that. You'll see at the very bottom is the stage, which is marked off. And then when you get above the stage, that's where the seating will be for the auditorium. Now, you'll see a little line there. There will actually be two areas of seating. The first line is going to be seating that is not quite as steep. It's going to be a lot more shallow, looking up at the stage. And then once you get past that line just above where it says auditorium, there will be another section of seats that will be much more steep. Okay, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And the auditorium is going to be double level. So there's nothing above the auditorium. That's ceiling. Okay? The plan is to have 500 to 550 seats. We're currently having an auditorium chair provider, vendor, kind of go through and do an audit of the space to tell us how many seats we can include, because there are rules involved in how big the seats have to be. But I can promise you that they're going to be cushioned. So that'll be a part of it. But we're thinking we're going to have somewhere between 500 to 550 seats. You'll also see to the left, there is a set storage room. Now, normally we would like to have, on the far right of the stage, you'll see an opening. That's where we have a loading dock where a big truck or an 18-wheeler can back up to. That's also right next to the kitchen, which also has a loading dock. So the goal is to just kind of have a continuous loading dock right there so that an 18-wheeler can back up either to the stage in the auditorium or to the kitchen, because that's how our food comes to us, is on an 18-wheeler. Now, normally you would have the set storage room right there where the loading dock is, but that just doesn't work out in our current plan. So I don't think it'll be that big of a deal to carry the stuff out of the truck through the door across the stage to the set storage on the other side of the stage. Above that, you'll see two dressing rooms and a hallway. So a female dressing room and a male dressing room. Now, currently, we do not have a theater arts program at the high school. We've just started a club, Mr. Overland mentioned earlier, that has about 13 students. But we would like to have the bones in place so that down the road, if we have enough interest and can hire a teacher, we can have a theater arts program. Because we feel like that would be a great addition to our arts program. It's the one part of the arts program that we don't have. And you know, it's difficult to have everything at a 1A high school. But if the interest is there, you never know. We may be able to have one. So we would like to take this opportunity to have the space to have dressing rooms. Now, in the meantime, until we have a theater arts program, we can use those dressing rooms for tutoring rooms. So one of the ideas we had is just that one of the dressing rooms could be for grades 3 through 5, communities for students, tutors, and the other dressing room could be for grades 6 through 8, communities for students, tutors. So we've got to have a space for them. Those will be two nice size spaces that they can use for tutoring. There are also, just above the dressing room, you'll see the one area where we have kind of gang style boys and girls bathrooms. You have to have a certain number of toilets to service a gym or an auditorium. Now, just to the left of the dressing rooms, you see an area that's basically a green space, but it says proposed future gym. It says auxiliary gym, but it could also be a competition gym. So what we want to do is just set aside a green space that is adjacent to the auditorium that, who knows? If we get enough local dollars to be able to build an auxiliary gym or even a new competition gym for the middle school, we set aside a place to have it where we can connect it to the main building. It'll be next door to the auditorium. And as a result, we can use the bathrooms, the gang-style multiple toilet bathrooms for boys and girls to also service the gym once we ever build it. The law requires that we have that. If we put the gym on the other side of the building, then we're going to have to include a whole lot more plumbing in order to do that. This way we can use the same bathrooms for the auditorium as well as the gym. So, and we have the space right there to use it. Any questions about that? On the right-hand side of the auditorium, you see the cafeteria as well as the serving area and kitchen. That would service grades 3 through 12 on the main campus and replace our current cafeteria. Above the auditorium area, you see that there's a STEM classroom, a stairwell, and then above that we have a secondary art classroom and an elementary art classroom. In between those is a shared storage area as well as a kiln room. Currently, the kiln that Ms. Engelman uses to teach her students clay and pottery is in this little shed out back, and you have to go outside to get to it, which isn't ideal, especially when it rains every other day. So we like the idea of having our art classrooms side by side. Also, I know Ms. Beck can agree with this, art teachers can tend to have a lot of stuff. And so, she laughs, but they have a lot of stuff, so we need a larger storage room that they can share and access easily. The kiln room is there as well, so that that can be shared. It also allows us to install an exterior door at the secondary art room. That isn't indicated here, but that's a change that I asked for. That will allow the high school students to access the secondary art classroom without having to go everywhere else in the building. I've also asked that we include a unisex bathroom in the secondary art classroom so that the high school students, if they have to go to the restroom, there's a restroom in the classroom. They don't have to access the rest of the building. They'll go in and out that one door from the exterior, and there's no need for them to go anywhere else in the building. All right, and then you can kind of walk up and you can see that on the bottom floor in grades 3 through 5, we have third grade classrooms kind of dominate the bottom floor because of the K-3 class size law. We can't have more than 18 students in a third grade classroom, so we have to have more third grade teachers than we do fourth and fifth grade teachers. So you can see that all of those classrooms on the bottom floor are third grade, which puts them all together. Along with the EC classrooms. On the first floor on the 6-8 side, that is where you have the 6th grade classrooms as well as EC and resource. I'll go ahead and cover as well. You'll notice that for each of the grade levels, there is a row of 6 unisex bathrooms for each grade level. So each grade level has its own assigned bathrooms, and each of those bathrooms is a separate bathroom, side by side. So instead of having one big game-style bathroom that is for boys, we have 6 unisex bathrooms that boys or girls can use, but only one goes in at a time. So that allows us to avoid some of the gender identity issues that you can have when you're dealing with game-style bathrooms. It also eliminates, I think our second highest reason for discipline referrals at the high school is vaping in the bathroom. And that's because it's very difficult to monitor students in the bathroom, as it always has been since I was in school and before. I find that when you have individual bathrooms, there's no audience. So it's not quite as cool to go in the bathroom and smoke by yourself. So I assume that, if they do that, they might get away with it just like they do now, but it'll be a lot easier to identify on camera who went into that bathroom and when. Now, we won't have a camera shining in the bathroom. We'll have a camera down the hallway where we can see who goes into what door at what time. So at one point, the bathroom didn't smell like vape, and then it did. So we can nail down the times and do a little better job of monitoring our students in that way.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Sorry, Mass. The unisex bathrooms are what we put in the primary as well, right?
Yes.
So we have those, Heather?
On one hall.
Yeah, on the hall.
On the pre-K kindergarten, they have
Bathrooms in this class.
Yes. But I did like that one. We went in there to look at that. I thought that
We had to have a couple of gang-style bathrooms there by the gym
Yeah.
because it's a gym. So that's the reason why, like, we've got an auditorium. Whenever you have an auditorium or a gym, you have to have more toilets. So, all right. So that's the bottom floor. The next slide you'll see is the top floor. And again, starting at the bottom, there's nothing above the auditorium is 2 levels, so there's nothing above that. Other than a sound booth and some storage. As you go up, just above that STEM classroom, the upstairs is a music classroom. Then you have a media center with several conference rooms. There's also a production room, so we're going to set one room up. Our students love to make videos to exhibit their mastery of learning. So we're going to set up a room that's a green screen room, where they can pretty much create videos just like a weatherman and exhibit what they've learned in that way. Up above that, you'll see, again, the top level of the 3-5 wing is where we have 4th grade and 5th grade, as well as a workroom, and one additional is called a collaboration room, where our teachers would set up to meet, but that's also, if we needed an extra classroom space because we had a big grade level come through, we can expand into that extra classroom. And on the right, you have 7th and 8th grade are upstairs. And so again, that sort of covers that. Next slide. This just shows kind of all the buildings that we have right now, along with the bus parking lot in the middle. Next slide. So the first thing that we've been able to figure out is with this existing plan, we think we're going to be able to keep the flagpole that we've installed that was in honor of Miss Gibson and not have to move it, as well as a green space that would be big enough to, I mean, you could fit a full-size basketball court out there. So that's pretty much what we have right now. Next slide. This is where the new building will go. We've decided that we're going to continue to use the same road for buses that we're using now, just because it's going to be cheaper, not having to regrade that playground area in front of the existing elementary school. That will also allow us to bring equipment and materials in on that same road. Bear in mind that while we're building this school, we're going to have to move the buses back to Yellow Jacket Drive, nose to tail, and we'll probably be doing that for a couple of years. We proved we could do that when we were asphalting, when we were demoing the old elementary school and re-asphalting the bus parking lot. We did it for a couple of months, but we're going to be doing it for a little longer this go around. Next slide. Once we have built the school and moved the students in, the next step will be demoing the buildings highlighted in yellow. So the middle school will be demoed and turned into a parking lot. Then the cafeteria will be demoed. And then the 2 pods, as well as the trailers, and then the trailers behind the elementary school. We'll get rid of all those because they're not in the best of shape to begin with. They're all about 20, 25 years old at this point. Next slide. And then these are all green spaces that we're going to create. We think we're going to be able to create 5 green spaces for our students to be able to have areas outside to play on, so that maybe we don't turn one spot into a mud hole. Because it doesn't take long for it to look like a tractor pull back here in the fall. And then, of course, those white areas will be parking lots. The bottom one for the buses. Next slide. All right. Any questions? That's just kind of where we are right now. I just got the updated full contract with LS3P, the architect, from the board's attorney, Mr. Schwartz, today. And I have sent that to LS3P for them to send to their lawyers. We're still kind of negotiating some of the finer points while we do this work, but I'm hopeful that we'll have a finalized contract for the board to review and approve next month. And that's kind of where we are right now. Last thing, we are, I've got a meeting tomorrow to finish some sort of final design points, and then we're going to turn this back over to the estimators for the goal of having an estimate of what they think it will cost to build this school as we have it designed to share with the building subcommittee on March 31st, which I know that is after the March board meeting. So we may end up having to have a special called meeting for the board to be able to review that before it goes to the county commissioners. But time-wise, that was just, the estimators take about a month to go through everything and come up with the numbers. All right, so that's it.
Very good. Thank you for that. Next, we have the action section of the agenda, and the first item there is the mowing contract with Chattoog Outdoor Services.
Yes, I apologize. This was shared with the board today. We just got it in today. We would like to, I'd like to recommend that we renew with our existing vendor, Chattoog Outdoor Services. They did a really good job last year for their first time with us. We did make some changes, just minor changes to areas that we wanted them to weed eat or blow off sidewalks, that sort of thing. The price for all of this is going to go up $4,950 from last year's price, most of which has to do with a rise in the cost of fuel. Everything costs more, so. But we've been happy with their work, and I just ask that the board approve this annual contract, because I'm hoping at some point it's going to quit raining and the sun is going to come out. When it does, the grass is going to start growing this month. Be nice. I know the baseball coaches would like for the sun to come out, and the softball coaches.
Any questions or comments on that contract? There's no questions or comments at any time. I'll entertain a motion that we approve this contract or re-enter into this contract at the new fees.
I do have just a quick question. On the section where we're talking about right of substitution, so the contractor, at their discretion, can substitute someone, come assist them or help, or did that happen last year?
Did it happen last year?
Do you know?
I wasn't notified of it, no.
But we didn't have any issues or anything last year with this?
No.
It was all contract?
No. So, in essence, if, let's say that, because the contractor does a lot of this work himself, let's say that he hurt his back, something like that, was not able to work, he could engage a third party and he could pay them to do the work for him. He's still responsible, but he could do that if he needed to.
Mr. Chairman, remind us how this works. There's a certain amount per mow, up to a total. But if there isn't a mow because of weather,
we work with them on that.
It's not always the total. It can be per mow, basically.
The contract allows us to hold the mower accountable to a minimum. But we can also elect, if we know that the weather just didn't allow for the work to be done, then we can approve moving times or missing a mode if it just could not be done. But that requires communication between the vendor and our maintenance director, Steve Livers.
But that would obviously mean that the next time it is ready to mow, it's gonna be taking more time or.
That's correct.
A lot more to have to do.
That's
because it's
correct.
growing.
Yeah, they'll probably end up having to do it, well, maybe not, but they could possibly have to mow it twice in some areas if it's high enough.
I mean, seems like it would, you know, be down.
Mr. Livers would be in charge of watching and making sure they're doing all the work incorrectly, correct?
Yes, sir. And he does a great job with that. If they miss anything, he's on.
I wasn't questioning his.
He's on.
Too,
Sir, ma'am?
I'd just like to ask about, it may not be possible to give a really good answer at this time, but how does this price compare to what you feel like it cost us to do it ourselves?
Well, it's still more to do it ourselves because we're not paying just a salary, we're also paying benefits and retirement to that employee, as well as the equipment.
Right.
The equipment that it takes to mow this campus and some of the steep, very, very steep areas that we have, I mean, we've got to have a $35,000 lawnmower to be able to do it. And then we also have to maintain that equipment. And when you count all that in, it's still cheaper for us to contract it out right now.
And this has been where we've had competitive bids on it, so it's not just the same one over and over.
Correct. Yes, this is a
So
different.
it's been bidded out. I thought
So
that's how we worked it.
we bidded it out the year before last and chose this vendor. And in that contract, it says that, of course, we can cancel at any time, but we try to keep the same one for 3 years if we're happy. And so, that's what we're doing. We've been happy with his work. We made just some minimum changes to areas that we expect him to weed eat and that sort of thing. But they're minimal changes, and we'd like to contract with him again this year. And as long as we're happy, we'll probably stick with him next year. And then we'll rebid it the year after that. So about every 3 years, we want to rebid whether we're happy or not. Because you never know, you might be happier with somebody else. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion that we approve the mowing contract with Chattooga Outdoor Service? Go ahead.
Go ahead, ladies first.
No, I wasn't. I was just
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Is there a second? Mr. Caldwell, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then next we have the MOU for the Western Carolina University Principal Fellows Program.
So one of the areas that we constantly work on is recruiting and retaining high-quality staff. This particular opportunity is through Western Carolina University, and it is through the Principal Fellows Program. Not only do we need to recruit future teachers out of our high school students from our surrounding states and counties and wherever else we can get them, but we also need to build a bench essentially for the leaders of our schools, for our assistant principal positions, our principal positions, and our director level positions. Obviously, it's expensive. You have to have a master's degree in order to be able to do this work at a minimum. A master's degree is typically 3 years of classes at a minimum, and you're gonna drop $30,000 or so earning that master's degree. The Principals Fellows Program at Western Carolina University is a way that we can partner with the university and select at a minimum one student, one interested student from our staff each year that would want to take advantage of this scholarship so that they can, the first year they would take classes paid for by the scholarship at night while they are still teaching full-time for us. The second year, they would enter into a full-time internship in our schools, working with myself and one of our principals. And they would not be teaching in the classroom. The school district during that second year would be responsible for paying for that employee's benefits, not their retirement and not their salary. So in a normal teaching position, that's going to cost us somewhere between $6,000 and $7,000 for the district in order to help that employee earn their master's degree in school administration. Now, that's an investment on our part. They could get that degree and they could leave us the next year. It's a 2-year program. They have, I believe, is 6 years to get a job as an assistant principal somewhere, hopefully with us. But of course, we can't guarantee that. We're a small district. But as long as they get a job within 6 years as an administrator, then they can pay their degree back just by having the job.
And this would be a job anywhere? Or?
It could be a job anywhere, but we would like for it to be with us if we have a job that comes open.
Does that include out of state and whatever?
No, it would have to be in-state. Worst case scenario, we have a staff member that goes through this grant program, the scholarship program. Our district pays the $6,000 or $7,000 for their benefits for that 1 year, for their insurance. And then they go 6 years with us as a teacher without ever getting an administrative job. And at that point, at the end of 6 years, they have to start paying their own degree back, which if they didn't get this scholarship, they would have had to have paid for it anyway. So it provides a chance for our staff members to earn an administration master's degree at no cost to them. It is a little bit of a cost for us, but I think it's worth the investment to have people on our staff that have a master's degree in school administration, so that as principals and assistant principals come and go, we have people in-house that are ready to move up. So what I'm recommending, in order to do this, we have to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Western North Carolina. This is, you can go through and see what the requirements are in this MOU, but essentially that's what it is. The first year, the staff member is taking classes while teaching for us full-time and getting paid their normal salary. Their classes are free. The second year, they're doing a full-time internship with us on our campuses. They are placed into a leave of absence that guarantees them their job, their previous job when they get out. And it doesn't have to be exactly the same job they have, but if they were a teacher, they're guaranteed a teaching job when they come back. So whoever we hire in their place for that year, they know that it could very well be a 1-year thing. But we pay for their insurance during that time, which is $6,000 to $7,000 depending on the employee, and then the scholarship pays for their retirement and their salary. And then the third year, they're either in an administrative job with us or someone else, or they're back in a teaching job for Clay County Schools. And we already have one staff member interested in applying for this year, and I think she's already turned in her paperwork. Now, I did include this in the action agenda to just kind of get it done, but if the board would like to vote to move this off the action agenda and vote on it next month, then you can do that as well.
Any questions or comments about this? Is there a motion to enter into this MOU or a motion to?
I'd like to make a motion that we enter into it.
Okay, Ms. Beck has a motion that we enter into this MOU with Western Carolina University. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Mr. Crawford, second. All in favor? Thank you.
I'll mention too, in the years to come, the district is under no obligation to approve anyone that applies. So for instance, if someone applies for this scholarship that we feel like just wouldn't be a good fit, as an administrator for our school district, then we don't have to approve them for this scholarship. That's also part of the MOU. So we have some control, because it does cost us a little money, we have some control over that.
Next, we have the 2023 summer testing program.
All right, a lot of approvals tonight. So the summer testing program allows our schools, if approved by the board, to any student that does not score proficient on their state exam, it is possible for them to receive remediation and then retake the state exam after the student instructional days at the end of the school year are over. There's no requirement on how much remediation they have to have. They could have 1 hour of remediation on a particular area that they struggled with, and then they could retake the test, as long as it's after the school year ends. Whatever score they make on a makeup, it's not really a makeup, but on a retake, DPI doesn't like you to call it a retake, but that's what it is. And whatever that score is, if they score worse, then the higher score stays in place. That score, if it is higher on the retake, it does not count towards EVOS growth. It only counts towards proficiency for the student in the school. The high school was not interested in having a retesting plan for this summer, just based on the lack of participation by high school students last year. They put a lot of work into their plan, and then we had very few high school students show up. But grades 3 through 8, they do wish to have a plan. Their instructional information is there. You can see the number of hours they plan to have for remediation, and then the testing dates would be June 7th and 8th. They would make sure all of that happened on those 2 days. But in order to have that, we have to have approval from the Board of Education, and then we have to submit this plan after that to DPI.
I'm sure you, is this a State Department finance program?
It doesn't cost us any money. The remediation will happen on the teacher work days.
Oh, okay.
And as well as the retest will happen on the teacher work day. So, the people giving the retakes are already going to be here. They're already going to be getting paid. So it's not additional hours. It doesn't cost any additional monies. It's just a chance for us to improve our test scores, and for our students that didn't score proficient to have an opportunity to score proficient after a little remediation on specific targeted areas where they need it.
And that seemed to be, very successful last year for those students.
On average, over the years, I've seen somewhere around a 30 to 40% success rate on the retesting. So the students that do it, that come to remediation and then take the retake, typically about 30 to 40% of them will score proficient.
Mr. Cole, you said it affects proficiency, but not growth.
But not growth.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve the summer program plan?
I'll make
Second.
that.
Mr. Caldwell, Mr. Jones seconds. All in favor? Thank you. Next, we have a resolution to approve the selling of the property located at 919 Bethelbear Road to the highest bidder, which was for an amount of $70,000.
Yes, members of the board, I'm recommending that you approve this resolution as required by law so that we can move forward with the sale. Once the board approves this resolution, then Dr. Shook can sign it, and I can sign attesting to its approval.
And this was auctioned off or put up for bid last month.
Correct.
So that was the highest bid that we got.
And then we went through the upset bid process, and we had no upset bids.
So is there a motion to approve this resolution to sell the property at Bethelbear Road?
I'll make a motion to sell.
Mr. Caldwell, second. All in favor? Thank you. And then next, there's a recommendation to approve a salary raise for the Clay County Schools Board of Education chair position from $5,000 a year to $7,000 a year due to the requirement for the chair to make $1,000 more than the regular Board of Education salary.
Yeah, members of the board, I apologize. I can't remember if it was, I think it was the January meeting that the board approved a salary raise from $4,000 to $6,000 for the board members, and I forgot that the board chair actually is required by policy to be paid $1,000 more than the regular board members, and we didn't have approval for that. So this just puts that approval in place for the salary, the correct salary change for the board chair. And that's just for the extra time it takes to build the agenda and communicate on all of that leading up to the meetings.
It's terrible, but I guess is there a motion to approve that according to the policy? Mr. Caldwell. Mr. Jones, second. All in favor? Thank you. And then next is the recommendation to approve a resolution limiting North Carolina High School Athletic Association playoff participation by charter and private schools to a 2A to 4A classifications.
Yes, I shared this with the board last month, and at your direction, I shared it with Mr. Schwartz to turn this into a resolution that the board could consider for approval. Again, normally I would let you kind of take a look at this for a month, but the General Assembly's in session. I would like to get this out there to Senator Corbin and Representative Gillespie as soon as I can. Essentially, this resolution urges the General Assembly, the State Board of Education, and the High School Athletic Association to address the unfair competitive advantage that charter schools and private schools have over traditional public schools by prohibiting charters and private schools from competing in the 1A playoffs. So we all agree that athletic competition is a powerful motivating component of our educational program. It teaches leadership and any number of other things to our students. In order for it to be motivating, the competition has to be fair. All students deserve to feel like they have an opportunity to go to the playoffs and to do well and maybe even win a state championship. That's the bedrock that public schools are built on. In Session Law 2021-184, enacted several years back, directed the State Board of Education by the General Assembly to adopt rules governing high school interscholastic athletic activities conducted by public school units. It required the State Board of Education to classify schools into divisions and conferences. It also allows the State Board of Education to enter into MOUs with nonprofit organizations to administer high school athletics. That's how they work. The State Board of Education works with the High School Athletic Association. The agreement between the State Board and the High School Athletic Association establishes classifications and conferences in supposedly a fair, impartial, and transparent manner. Remember that traditional public schools must retain defined attendance boundaries. If they play sports for Clay County schools, they have to prove residence in Clay County. Article 25 of North Carolina General Statute 115C establishes requirements for the admission and assignment of students enrolled in traditional public schools. Students attending traditional public schools must live within our attendance boundary to be eligible to participate in our high school athletic programs. Charter schools and private schools do not have attendance boundaries. There are no effective restrictions on charter schools and private schools to prevent them from recruiting student athletes from traditional public schools or from even outside the country or county in which they are located. Private schools and charter schools can admit students for athletic eligibility and effectively recruit student athletes from anywhere in the county in which they are located and any addresses within a 25-mile radius of the school, or with no boundary limitations if the student is a member of a church affiliated with the school, according to High School Athletic Association rules. Also, private schools may offer needs-based aid, scholarships, to student athletes under High School Athletic Association guidelines. We don't get to offer scholarships. 108 schools across North Carolina compete at the 1A level, including 67 traditional public schools, 39 public charter schools, and 2 private schools. Being able to recruit and offer scholarships gives charters and privates a significant competitive advantage over traditional public schools because it allows them to draw athletic talent from a far greater area than traditional public schools, and particularly ours. The database for Division 1A championships proves the extreme unfair competitive advantage of private and charter schools in the following sports. So, for example, in women's soccer, traditional public schools have won 0 of the last 9 state championships. In men's tennis, traditional public schools have won 0 of the last 8 state championships. In volleyball, traditional public schools have won 0 of the last 6 state championships. In men's soccer, traditional public schools have won only 1 of the last 6 titles. In men's basketball, traditional public schools have won only 2 of the last 10 state championships. Of course, we were one last year, go Jaguars. But it was not easy. So just think about that. In the last 10 years, only 2 1A high schools, traditional public schools, have won a state championship in basketball. So charters and private schools have dominated Final Four competitions in Division 1A and precluded traditional public schools from fairly competing for those championships. As a result, the competitive advantage described is unfair and demoralizing to traditional public schools and their coaches and their student athletes who seek to compete on a level playing field in 1A. This unfair competitive advantage deprives traditional public schools, their students, and communities of opportunities for revenue from gate receipts, concession sales, merchandise sales, and other revenues that help support our sports programs, which is very necessary at a 1A school. This unfair competitive advantage deprives our public schools, their students, and communities of opportunities for competition, recognition, exposure to larger audiences, scholarship opportunities, and the unique experiences and lifelong lasting pride that come with competing for or winning a state championship. So the General Assembly or State Board of Education or North Carolina High School Athletic Association should prohibit charter and private schools from competing in the 1A playoffs and should establish separate playoff brackets for charter and private schools, or they should move all charter and private schools to 2A or higher playoff brackets because of the size of the area and the number of students they can recruit from. So I just want it to be resolved by the Board of Education, the General Assembly, the State Board of Education, the State Superintendent, and the High School Athletic Association, that they take immediate action to address this unfair competitive advantage that charter and private schools have over traditional public schools, particularly at the 1A level, by prohibiting charters and privates from competing in the 1A playoffs. And I could hammer away at that all night.
I think you're preaching to the choir.
Any reasonable person can
Figure that one out.
stop. It's not hard.
Any questions or comments about
Just,
No.
if I may, just
Sure.
procedurally, does the General Assembly have to do this in session law?
It is my understanding that yes, they have to change the law, because that's how it got changed. Previously, I can't remember how many years it was. It was, I guess, probably 10 or 12 years ago. Charter schools and private schools were not allowed to compete in the High School Athletic Association playoffs. And then the General Assembly passed a law saying that the State Board of Education had to come up with a plan to allow for that. And so then the State Board of Education policy had to change to match the law, and then the High School Athletic Association policies had to change to match State Board. So in order to make it happen, the General Assembly has to make it so.
Ultimately.
Yes. State Board of Education policy and High School Athletic Association policy cannot conflict with the law.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion that
I'll
we,
make that motion for us to accept that.
I'll second it.
Mr. Crawford, second, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Crawford. And next, we have the recommendation to approve budget amendments. You're gonna pass, right? Or-
Ms. Hollingsworth has been dealing with a little bit of crud in her throat, so I'm going to try my best to fill in for her tonight. However, I did require her to come in case I said something wrong, that she could correct me. So this is a recommendation to approve budget amendments. You had that packet as well. So first of all, with the State Public School Fund on page 1, this budget amendment reflects the following. 013 Career Technical Education months of employment. It's a guaranteed allotment. We received $31,599 towards that. 015 School Technology Fund. We had interest that came in of $1. 056 and both of these are 056. It's a second installment of our school transportation allotment from the state, as well as stop arm camera allotment. The first was $112,936, and the stop arm camera allotment was $6,000. We use that to make sure we have stop arm cameras so that we can give people tickets that pass stop school buses. We can catch their license tag. And then 064 Career Technical Education Expansion Grant, the final allotment for $32,598 for a total of $183,134 in the State Public School Fund. If there are no questions on that, page 2 is the Local Current Expense Fund. This budget amendment reflects the following. First was an appropriate unrestricted fund balance due to appropriating unrestricted fund balance due to rising utility costs. Electricity and propane and fuel oil are very expensive right now, much more expensive than they were last year at this time. So we've appropriated $42,669 for the difference in utility costs that we've been dealing with. And then we had just a balancing entry of $100, budget resolution miscellaneous revenue correction. So the total is $42,569 for local current expense fund. Next is the Federal Grants Fund. This amendment reflects the following. 017 Career Technical Education Perkins. These are federal dollars of $2,195 we received. Code 109, which is RLIS. Remind me what RLIS stands for, Ms. Owens?
Rural low-income schools.
Rural low-income schools. We get some federal dollars due to our school district qualifying for that category. We received $2,273. And then for Code 169, the CARES Act, which is just kind of part of our ESSER funds from the federal government. We had a specialized instructional support personnel for COVID-19 response of $1,069.97. So the total budget amendment was $3,398.03.
And the $1,069.97 was actually a reversion.
It was a reversion.
Money's we did not spend.
Next page is the Capital Outlay Fund. This amendment reflects the following. First, we had a lottery expenditure budget for completed construction in progress of $23,321.42. I believe that paid for surveying the campus, doing basically like a 3D survey of the campus in preparation for designing the building. We had a miscellaneous revenue of auction proceeds where we had our last auction in the fall. We auctioned off some things that we did not need. That was $3,339. For some property sale proceeds, we had $3,500, and then appropriated fund balance $5,098 for a total of $35,258.42. That's for the capital outlay fund. And the last page is for the school food service fund. This amendment reflects the following. First, local payments on behalf of the Child Nutrition Program of $57,644. State payments on behalf of the Child Nutrition Program of $106,097. Federal payments on behalf of the Child Nutrition Program of $8,546. USDA Supply Chain Assistant Funds, we love getting those, $9,798. And then some more supply chain assistant funds of $27,020 for a total of $209,105.
Those local, state, and federal payments that we have there that we are budgeted, those are payments that we did make on behalf of the Child Nutrition Program from other funds. Just like when we had the budget, that was one of the budget violations that we had. We had not appropriated enough funds. The local is for the local position that we had to add for the primary school was funded locally, as well as the paid reps grant. And then the state payments are basically the state match that we're required for that program. And then the federal payments are some of those retention bonuses that we pay out the staff. So we had to make sure you have those budgeted.
Very good. Any questions or comments regarding the budget amendments? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve those.
Make a motion we approve.
Ms. Beck, is there a second? Mr. Caldwell, second. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cole. Shirley, thank you. Sorry about your voice back there. Next, we have the approval of the consent agenda. Looks like the only thing there is the board meeting minutes from January the 23rd. So is there a motion that we approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion we approve it.
Ms. Beck.
I'll second.
Ms. Crawford, second. All in favor? Very good. If there's no other comments or questions, then I will entertain a motion that we go into closed session.
Make a motion, we go into closed session.
Jones, Mr. Caldwell, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time this evening.